Captain's log, stardate 41365.9. The Enterprise has been ordered to Starbase 74 in orbit around Tarsus 3. A routine maintenance check of all systems will be made, certain upgrades completed, including the holodeck with which we've had problems. I anticipate a glowing report. The ship has performed magnificently, beyond anyone's expectations.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Penske File. We are here continuing with our Let's Watch of Star Trek The Next Generation. We're up to episode 15 of season 1. This episode is called 11001001. It was directed by Paul Lynch. It was written by Maurice Hurley and Robert Lewin. It originally aired way back in February 1st, 1988. For a brief plot synopsis, this is the one where the Enterprise goes into a space station and is undergoing some computer repairs, and a species called the Binars are brought on to fix the Enterprise, and they end up hijacking and stealing the Enterprise for purposes that are unknown. And this is a episode that we're going to be talking to Modi Operandus about this one. So right after this break, we are going to get into what the episode is all about, our deepest, darkest thoughts about what goes on in this episode. And I just wanted to say thank you, everybody, for listening. If you are watching this on YouTube, I have to do a little bit of housekeeping here and just ask that if you enjoyed this episode, to please leave a like, maybe leave a comment, something like that. If you are now listening on iTunes, because this podcast is now going up on iTunes, I decided to branch out of the YouTube world onto the world of Apple and all of its devices. So if you were listening on iTunes, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for tuning in and downloading this. I know everybody's time is very valuable, and there are a lot of podcasts that you want to listen to during the day, and I am very, very happy if this is one of them. So thank you very much, and if you could please leave a rating or a few comments on iTunes, I'd appreciate it. All of this isn't for ego. It's all about getting your search rankings up there, and search ranking is king in this internet world. So thank you very much for your likes and comments on YouTube, and thank you very much for your ratings and comments on iTunes. I appreciate it very much. So without further ado, let's get into the episode, which is 11001001. We'll actually discover the meaning of that episode title in this episode right after this.
Recognize Picard, Jean-Luc, Captain. Recognize Riker, William T., Commander.
Set auto-destruct sequence.
Does the first officer concur?
Yes, set auto-destruct sequence. Now.
Auto-destruct will detonate in 4 minutes and 59 seconds.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Penske File. We are going through this episode of Star Trek on our Let's Watch. Let me just make sure that I get the title of this one right. It's 11001001. And we are joined again by Modi Operandus. How are you doing, sir?
Good morning.
Morning.
Well, afternoon, I guess.
Yeah. One of these days we'll get it down. What'd you think of this episode? How'd you like it?
It was better than I remembered, actually. I was thinking back. You mentioned this was my first good episode. I'm like, are you sure that's a good episode? But it actually is really good. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, it's we just finished watching Datalore too, which
that's another good one.
I didn't remember it being quite as good as it actually is.
Yeah.
And right after that, what was Angel One? Angel One intercepts between Datalore and this one.
Oh yeah.
But
okay.
Angel One wasn't really all that good, but Datalore was pretty good. And 11001001, just for the 10th time I'll say that. This one's actually not that bad. I think this is. I just have to accept that this is pretty much as good as the first season of Star Trek is going to get.
Right. Yes.
Did you have any big thoughts about it?
No. It had its weird season 1 kind of moments, but overall, like I thought the Binars were kind of annoying the way they talked.
Yep.
They're kind of like finishing each other's sentences kind of thing. It was like we got 2 seconds into introducing the Binars, and I was like, okay, I'm annoyed now.
Yeah.
Stop doing that anytime soon now.
They don't start talking like that until a little bit into it. But they do the finish each other's sentences, and then they have their own like their own little language.
Their own language, yeah.
Yep. But yeah, I thought that I enjoyed this episode. I thought that. Oh, let me turn that down. I don't know why that's. Sorry, technical stuff on this side. So, I enjoyed their. It's a weird season 1 thing. It's like I thought this episode made the most sense, plot-wise, that you're going to get out of a season 1 episode. I thought that It's the best way. I was getting very close to being annoyed by the binars just because it's a thing. It's like it's such a ham-fisted type of interpretation of an alien. They're called binars.
Yeah.
They speak in binary,
Right.
and they're built.
It's very hacky.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. It comes dangerously close to being sort of cheesy. But I thought
sure.
their makeup was really good.
Yeah, they looked really good. They looked. I don't know. They had weird faces and heads, and they looked definitely alien.
Yeah,
for sure.
They did. But they're definitely not human. And
Yeah.
so I thought, and it has other weird season 1 type stuff where people give exposition when it's really uncalled for.
Yeah, that's true.
It has a weird thing where, the Enterprise is docked at this station, and I guess I should say the station is probably one of the coolest things about this episode.
That was really cool. Yeah.
It actually looked great, especially
great,
in this like Blu-ray definition you can stream on Amazon. It actually held up really well. There's nothing I can say bad about that. And I actually enjoyed the concept of the ship needing to be sort of retrofitted every once in a while.
Yeah, that was a cool idea. It's like the first time they've come back to an actual port.
Yep.
Like that they'd get fixed up and have some shore leave and yada yada, that kind of thing. Like it doesn't happen too often, so it's kind of cool that they got to see that.
Yeah, and you see that Starfleet
aspect of it.
Starfleet has like gigantic space stations that can actually house other ships and things like that. And it's pretty interesting. And
yeah,
let's see. And outside of that, it just has a lot of these season 1 sort of issues where they're just explaining a lot. Like Riker's his like impetus to sort of get involved in the plot is he tells Wesley he's just going to stroll around the ship for a little bit.
And that's weird. That's a weird thing where he's going around visiting every single person.
Yeah, my wife was
see
watching.
what they're doing. What do you got going on over here?
My wife was watching and she said, is his plan just to go around and annoy everybody as they're packing to get off the
really
space
is
station?
like he goes in to visit Beverly, and it's like I was thinking, like, have they ever talked before? Are they gonna have like a casual relationship where they could be like, "Oh, what you got going on?" Like, I don't think they actually have a relationship like that.
That's a good point.
He's just going in like, "Oh yeah, this is why we don't talk." That's right.
No, that's a good point. I don't know if he's ever actually. I don't think he has actually talked to Crusher.
It's very professional when they interact with each other, but this is like the first time it's like,
Right.
I don't know. It's weird that I can't think of a single time they have like a casual conversation about anything.
No, that's a good point. And yeah, he's just kind of wandering around, and then the other big aspect of this episode, I guess, is that this is it's a holodeck episode. Sort of indirectly, it's a holodeck episode, and it's a first season type thing where it's weird that they, all the problems that they mention about the holodeck in this episode have not seemed to be problems in every previous episode we've seen about the holodeck.
Riker is so impressed by the capabilities of the woman he asked it to generate for him that, like, it's like every single thing we've encountered so far has done what's going on right now. It seems like they have agency and they can interact and create their own thoughts and stuff.
Yeah, and everyone seems to be impressed when they see them.
Yeah,
and in this
overly impressed.
This episode, it makes it seem like every previous holodeck character you've seen has been sort of an idiot that can't
predictable.
Can't predict what a human is going to do to it. And so the end result is that this episode has a almost a more, I don't know, it's the more I'm seeing the holodeck episodes, the more I'm getting sort of interested in all of the plot stories that they didn't actually tell about the holodeck. Because there is a Barclay episode later on that shows that he has a holodeck addiction.
Yes. Oh, that's a good episode. Yeah, I remember that one.
And I think that's the that's the most interesting way to take the holodeck, as opposed to everyone's on the holodeck and something goes wrong and it starts trying to kill people. That's the general sense of how the holodeck is used. And there's really a whole bunch of ethics problems that come into the holodeck.
Why wouldn't people just stay in there all the time?
Right.
Like people who aren't officers could just stay in there. Why wouldn't you?
The ease that people can book the holodeck seems to not make any sense, because I would spend every waking moment on the holodeck if that was my ability. And it comes into this episode that Riker falls in love essentially with this holodeck creation
that he created himself.
Yes, that he asked for.
He ordered this woman. It's like a mail-ordered bride, basically.
Yes, that's very true. And the Binars were happy to accelerate the programming of the holodeck in order to keep him in there. Which led to a whole bunch of scenes of like an awkward Three's a Crowd with Picard in there.
Yeah, very strange.
It was the holodeck. Picard comes in and the holodeck like plays to him speaking French and everything, and he's amazed he can speak French, which seems like the basic thing that a holodeck program should be able to do.
And she explains how she was able to do it. And it's like, okay, why doesn't it just do that all the time?
Yeah, I
access the French memories. Like, okay, that's fine. Why don't we just do that?
That makes sense. Makes sense to me. But yeah, him and Riker in there, it was a little sexually awkward. It was like that. You're definitely Three's a Company where Picard is like you're the buddy and his new girlfriend, and they're just very touchy feely, and you just have to hang out with them for a little bit.
Well, she seemed ready to be like, oh, let me lay some more French on you. Menage a trois.
That's right. Unfortunately, it didn't get to that. It would have definitely tightened the bond between commanding officer and Picard. So
anything goes in the holodeck.
No, there's nothing special, and it doesn't. It's more of the like season 1 stuff of nonsense of why can't they sense he's on the holodeck? Who cares? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When
right.
So the Binars attempt to hijack the Enterprise and take it away, and they do that by pretending that the ship is going to explode. And so everyone evacuates the ship, and Picard and Riker are stuck on the holodeck. And then the Binars steal the ship and, take it back to planet Binus, I think is what it's called.
Yeah, that's so stupid.
It is a little bit silly.
The naming of stuff in this is terrible.
And it's also not a binary planet, which I was expecting. No. It's just a single planet.
Why wouldn't it be? Missed opportunity.
Missed opportunity. And it's just the other special sort of thing about this, I think they do it once more, but this is the first auto-destruct sequence.
Okay, sure.
That's initiated. Yeah. I don't think they've done it yet. And
it was kind of convenient that both Riker and Picard were left on the ship because they're the only people that can actually activate the auto-destruct.
Oh, that's true.
It's a little too convenient in the writing there.
That is a good point. That. And Picard was not supposed to be there, I guess.
He's not supposed to be there, right.
Right. He kind of came in and got sucked into it. Why did they want Riker? They said that, didn't they?
I don't know. They did say that, but
I can't remember.
Maybe it was like opportunity that he's already in the holodeck, so they figured they could keep him there. I don't know.
Maybe
they can't have him going to the holodeck can't have been part of their plan.
No.
So
and I mean, let's go over their plan. Their plan is kind of stupid.
A little bit.
It makes sense. It's another thing with the Binars are like a little bit too on the nose for me. They're like I saw when I hadn't seen the episode in a while, and when it came down, the whole time I was wondering, I was like, why is this their plan? Like, why don't they just ask Starfleet to help them restart their planet? And as it started going along, no one was really bringing that up. And then at the end of it, I was someone finally
addressed that.
They do bring it up. Someone says, "Why didn't you just ask us?" And I had been wondering. I was like, would it just be the species only sees like binary ways, like they're like we either do this or we don't do it, and that's kind of their excuse for why they did it. They said what we would have said yes. They say you might have said no, so we couldn't ask. And he said, well, the probability was we would have said yes.
Right, they would have said yes. They always would have said yes.
Yep.
That doesn't. I don't know.
And no, whatever. It doesn't fit into the theme of everything.
They needed a plot, basically. It
does.
What happened there.
But it also.
They try to explain it at least, though. I mean, they understand that their plot was a little bit hack, and so they tried to like explain a reason why it would be hack.
Yes.
But
the reasoning also, it makes sense with the characters. It's just it continues that on the nose sort of cheesy binary way of thinking. But it's a strange episode. It's probably as good as the first season gets, I would have to assume. It
was also important. I did a little research on this episode a little bit, and the whole Riker playing trombone and being into jazz and stuff. Apparently, Jonathan Frakes was not happy with the character when he first started. He thought, Roddenberry wanted the character to be a very Midwestern, straight-laced, by-the-book kind of guy, and Frakes was not having any fun with the character until this episode, it sounds like. Where he first got to introduce like a little bit lightheartedness to the character and make it his own, kind of.
I guess he seems exactly the same, except for the fact that he's now shown that he can play the trombone. Like that seems to be the difference between him.
Well, I think Frakes is into jazz and also into trombone, and so that was kind of the thing that. Now he's more like Frakes.
Can Frakes actually play the trombone?
I'm having fun now. Yeah, he actually can play trombone.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. So it makes sense. So that's actually him pulling the character into himself.
The ideas for the character being into trombone and jazz came from Frakes.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's what, according to the article, anyways.
You just reminded me another thing I was thinking. I apologize to people listening. I didn't take big notes this time. We are trying a new format where it's more sort of a general conversation, which I think is going pretty well so far. But so I didn't take copious notes. So I guess I should for sort of ideas. But I realized while I was watching this, there are a lot of Riker-centric episodes in the first season, more than I thought. And I guess it might be more a point of Picard is not nearly as featured as I thought he would be.
Yeah, maybe right.
This is a Riker. I would call this a Riker episode. For sure. Angel 1 is a Riker episode, even though to the detriment of the actual episode, it should have been somebody else. And then a few more before that. So I'm surprised that Frakes thought that he wasn't getting enough work. Because
these might have been filmed out of order too. I don't know the exact order they filmed them on.
That's true. Yeah, so maybe he brought this up later at a certain point, but.
Yeah,
I'm intrigued by the way that the show generally goes over the next couple of years. Is Data and Picard are the focus of everything, and that's really not the point here. This is the episode where Data paints, right? Yes, it is. That's
yeah.
Which
and he blames himself because he was painting instead of being a robot.
Yeah,
okay.
I thought that was weird, but I did enjoy. It's a nice scene that sort of reinforces the Geordi and Data connection.
Yes, that's true.
Although I didn't understand why they were painting in the conference room.
No, didn't make any sense.
Was that the only set?
My wife was watching with. Was like, "What room are they doing this in?" I'm like, "I guess the observation deck or conference room for some reason."
Why not Data's apartment? We've seen Data's room in Datalore. So unless this was shot before and they hadn't built that before it, that's
it's very strange.
It is a very, very weird sort of thing, but that's all the season 1 type stuff that just keeps creeping into these episodes. And even when they have a good solid idea of an episode, it feels so half explored and filled with this sort of nonsense that it really loses track of what you're doing.
Yeah, that's true. It's I don't know, like the stuff, like you said with data painting, they try to do too much ensemble stuff that doesn't necessarily really add to the episode a whole lot.
Yep.
And then they kind of have to call back to it, like later on when Data blames himself because he was painting instead of paying attention to the bridge.
Yep.
They just call back to that just so they can justify having him paint in the first place.
Yes.
It doesn't really add anything to the plot, though.
No, it doesn't, and it feels out of place. It's not really his.
Right.
It's not really his fault. I mean, you could pull that argument with everything. You'd be like, well, if I was at home when I was supposed to be working, if I'd called in sick, that horrible accident would have happened. It's like, well,
right, yeah,
you were just doing.
Data's not going to blame himself for every single thing that happens around here. So why is he doing it this time?
Yeah, why is he doing it this time? And you just reminded me the other thing. There was some weird casting in this episode where you can't intentionally cast a guest actor who looks exactly like your lead with a beard.
Oh my god. Yes, I had the same exact thought.
When he came on, I hadn't seen it in a while. I was like, oh, is this Picard's like long lost brother or something that serves in Starfleet?
He had a goatee, so he's evil Picard.
Yeah, and that's my wife brought up the fact she has never seen this one. She's like, am I supposed to not trust this guy? He seems a little sketchy. And it's true because he has a beard, so he's evil Picard. Yep. And he also is sort of leering around while the Bynars are doing things, and you wouldn't be mistaken to think that this guy is somehow involved with what's going on.
That's true. I think maybe that's a plot line they went down previously, and they just kind of didn't write it out all the way.
Yeah,
because he does have like a weird kind of shadiness to him in the episode,
and it would sort of strengthen why the Bynars. You could write in a reason as to why this is so nefarious if a sort of a Starfleet officer is a double agent for them or something, or helping them for a reward.
Right.
They do not go down.
Or maybe he's just helping them so that he can be guaranteed to help them. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's like their liaison or whatever, so he wants to make sure they stay around.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So he finagles the thing so that everyone ends up helping them out.
Yeah, no, that'd be a good point. But it was very shocking. You can't cast someone who looks exactly like your lead for no reason. And you can't have, unless it's a point of the episode, you can't have them acting nefariously the entire time that the show is going on, because you expect something to happen at the end of it.
It's a little misdirect there somehow.
And
unintentional, probably.
I'm sure it was. He probably like cut his hair or something before he came in to do the role, and they're like, "You look exactly like Patrick Stewart. You need to stop doing that.
You need to go away now."
But the I'll keep saying it, but it's felt very season 1, and that there is not. This episode does an okay job of it, but there's not a lot of conflict resolution in these early episodes. I don't know if you watched Angel 1 recently, but the entire beeline of Angel 1 is the sickness that overtakes the ship. It's a terrible beeline in Angel 1, and it basically starts at the start of the episode, and it ends at the end of the episode with Crusher just figuring out the cure. You know, there's nothing story-based that drives figuring out what the cure is for these things. So it's really just like, oh, we have 5 minutes left in the episode. Now Dr. Crusher...
Gotta wrap this up.
We gotta wrap it up.
Great.
Dr. Crusher figures it out and cures everybody. And that's a big problem with a lot of these season 1 episodes, in that there's not a huge amount of conflict going into things. Every chance that they get where they could up it to cause something else to happen, they really don't. And at the end of the episode, things just resolve themselves. Which is
that's true.
Which is what happens here.
This episode is guilty of that too. Yeah, that kind of just resolves itself. Like, oh, well, we didn't destroy the ship. It didn't actually matter that we were going to destroy the ship, because it would have been solved had we not done anything.
Yep.
You aren't keeping the ship, and so everything's fine. We just had to wait it out.
And I understand they saved a species, but the reason, the logic behind doing it doesn't make any sense. And they also have committed what is like the ultimate Grand Theft Auto at this point, where they've stolen this. We're told it's the most powerful ship in Starfleet at this point.
So those few are executed for treason or something like that, then I imagine.
Yeah.
Those few binars.
They should be. Yeah,
well, actually, we're beyond capital punishment at this point, of course, but I don't know.
Well, it depends on the planet.
Some type of punishment.
Maybe not Starfleet, but I'm sure the binars have a execution. Every other planet that the Federation has run into has seemed to want to execute people for very small reasons. So the binars should be doing that, but the binar plot the rationale for them just falls really sort of flat. I thought they were kind of a cool creation, but their logic behind doing things, while it makes sense in character, is just kind of infuriatingly silly when you think of it.
Yep, that's true.
And it led to a whole bunch of weird things where they're like, oh, they're binary, and so Riker and Picard get on the bridge, and they're like, what do you think the code would be?
Oh God!
And he goes, they're binary, so it must be something very, very simple. And this is probably the biggest mystery of the show. What does 10, whatever the fuck this title is, 11001001, does that mean something? Because
no, it was the names of the binars is what the episode title means. I don't know if it actually translates anything in binary.
No, okay. So to follow up on your point, there's some weird shenanigans going on with the names. When the evil Picard brings the binars on, he calls one 10, and he calls the other one 01. And then in the credits, they're credited as 00 and 11. And the thing about the binary passcode, what I was saying when I started getting into this line of thought is, if you wanted it to be simple, why isn't it 11110000? What is 11001001? Because the computer has to process it for a little bit to figure out to crack the code. And I'm no mathematician or anything, but it seems like there are a lot of possibilities if you have 8 numbers or 8 spaces.
There's a lot of possibilities it could be.
Yeah, and the computer's super powerful, so it figures it out. But they never explain what the title of this episode means, and I don't know if
the meaning of it was that the 2 sets of binars were 11 and 00, and then the other 2 sets that will show up later are 10 and 01.
Oh, really?
So that those 2 pairs together is what the name of the title comes from. I guess.
Oh, that makes sense.
But why Riker would think of that doesn't make any sense. And they weren't actually introduced to these characters' names.
No,
according to the second set.
That makes sense. Yeah, the second set. Yeah, we never hear their names. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I guess
we get introduced to the first set, but not the second set that shows up randomly. So we don't know what their actually names are.
Oh, so the title is just all possible combinations of a binary 2-digit number.
Yeah.
You have 110010 and 0. Okay, all right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, that actually elevated the episode in a little bit in my mind.
Just a little bit.
Wow, that's strange. Okay, cool.
But I just looked it up, and 11.001001 is an approximation of pi in binary also.
Oh, all right.
That's a little tidbit from the wiki.
All coming together here. Interesting.
Not really. Not really.
I didn't... now that I think Datalore might be a better episode than this episode, but this one is not upsetting to me, which is, I guess, is a sort of big point at this point in the show. Let me see if there's anything else here. Let's look at reception. So we'll go over what these guys said. Let's see. Oh, James Hunt reviewed the website for the website Den of Geek. He was surprised by the episode in that he went in expecting something that was typically season 1 awful, but got something that was actually a lot of fun. He thought that the theme of symbiosis between man and machine, and thought it was the best episode until that point in season 1, and one of the best overall. Yes, I would agree with that. That seems more.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of the better season 1 episodes.
That seems more excited about it than I feel like I am. Zach Hanlon watched it for the AV Club. He too was surprised by what he found. Hanlon said, "The last time I saw it, I thought Riker and Minuet's interactions were cheesy as hell. They didn't bother me so much now because they didn't go on very long, and there's something hilarious about a man trying to seduce a computer simulation designed to respond to his own seductions." But he said,
"Yeah,
I had fun with this, which I wasn't expecting, and thought it was solid." He gave it a B. Keith Candido reviewed the episode in 2011. He described it as one of the strongest first season episodes, and the Binars were one of the finest alien species Trek has ever provided. Well, that seems strong praise.
That is a strong one.
He also thought that the turning off of the auto-destruct with 2 minutes to go instead of mere seconds neatly avoided a cliche. I guess that's true.
I did like that.
Yeah.
I did like that a lot.
Although it brings up a weird thing that this episode does not give a lot of time for things to be done. When Data figures out that the ship is like the Binars have faked the antimatter problem to evacuate the ship.
Yeah.
He tells everyone that the ship is going to explode in 4 minutes, and they somehow evacuate the entire ship in that time.
Very strange. Yeah, you're right. They were sending out people via the transporter too.
And you have to account for the fact that Data wants to evacuate the ship, get the ship out of the space station, and have it warp drive far enough away to not do any damage. And he wants to
within 4 minutes.
Within 4 minutes, which seems outrageous. And the other, with the auto-destruct, was set to 5 minutes. And me and my wife were laughing that when the ship is about to explode in 5 minutes, it just causes you to walk very quickly instead of run around.
Well, then they have the whole part where they got to the elevator and it's not working, and then they're like, "Oh, let's just go around," and like it's like okay, but none of it actually mattered because they had 2 minutes remaining when they got there.
They did, yeah.
Like, there's no sense of urgency whatsoever here.
No, so in the Star Trek universe, things are very efficient, and you can accomplish a lot in a couple of minutes. I just thought it was funny because...
Well, when he said it for 5 minutes, it's like, okay, that gives us just enough time to get to the bridge and shut this off if we get the ship back.
Right.
But then they get to the elevator, it's locked, and they're like, okay, well, we have time, let's just go back around.
Well, thank God we put 30 seconds more than we actually needed to get up there. But it was just, I thought it was funny because when they were evacuating the ship, there were like lines for the transporter. And they're going through so much rigmarole when they're beaming people off that it was like, this should be done in a more efficient manner. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Keith
no way.
Candido, let's see. He avoided the cliche. He gave it a 7 out of 10. Trek Nation thought it was very close to being really good. Picard and Riker's actions were the most boneheaded joint behavior.
It's a glowing recommendation right there. Very close to being really good.
This is very, very close. She also thought that Picard and Riker's actions were the most boneheaded joint behavior by the two top officers. In that they got distracted by a female character on the holodeck and didn't notice the ship being evacuated. Yeah, we had talked about it. Well,
in their defense, she was sultry, apparently.
She was super sultry. And it just I like how when Riker goes in there, he says there's like 10 people in there, he goes, too crowded. he wants the one woman in the crowd that
he ordered the New Orleans Bourbon Street bar at 2 a.m.
Yep.
Don't most bars close about 2 a.m.?
New Orleans never closes, baby.
It's no longer open.
Goes on all night. And I also liked that the holodeck insulted his trombone ability.
That was funny too. I appreciated that.
It is.
And that's what makes me. I'm pretty sure that Frakes actually plays the trombone because that line seems like directed at him.
Yeah, just
like kind of a slam against him.
And I guess just something else we can talk about is well, I've been rewatching this. I talked earlier. Data and Picard are like obviously the focal point of the show, or they become the focal point just because Picard is the captain and Data is the most easy to write about. Because you're writing about humanity when you write about Data.
Right.
So he's sort of interesting for writers to tackle. And Worf eventually becomes fairly deep. They dedicate a lot of episodes to Worf. And the one thing that I'm sort of appreciating on this rewatch is that I think Frakes gives a really underrated performance as Riker.
For sure.
He's constantly sort of smirking at the camera, which becomes endearing, I think, because it's definitely Frakes sort of smiling at other cast members as they're saying ridiculous lines, but it sort of, he transcends that and it becomes part of the Riker character. But I am impressed by the amount that Riker does in these early episodes and sort of how well, for someone who's not really broken out all that much, he is, we just talked about he's given a trombone and that's supposed to be like character depth. Yeah. But he actually does quite a bit in these early episodes, and I think he pulls it off pretty well.
For sure. I agree.
He's I'll probably get into it later, but I was doing tiers of the characters on the show, just to like what I would consider like top tier, middle tier, bottom tier. And I might have to adjust just based on what Riker has been doing in these recent things.
For sure.
All right. Anything else you have to say about this episode?
No. It was, like I said, it was like the guy said, it was very close to being a very good episode.
Yeah. That's definitely as good as we're gonna get. Yeah, I'd agree. I think it was pretty solid. I think Data Lore is still the best episode of this season, but I didn't really have any problems with this one. I'm not sure I'd ever recommend this episode for someone to watch, but it's definitely an episode that it makes sense in and of itself, which is a big step. The characters are interesting. It brings up some interesting sort of thoughts about the holodeck and everything. And otherwise, nothing else really going.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, I'm looking here now. You are right. The characters' names are 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, and 1, 1. Oh, yeah. Well, I think that was the biggest revelation of this whole podcast, is to figure out what those names actually come from.
Glad I could help.
Cool. So, let's see. Anything else? What's next? Too Short a Season. So, if you guys tune in next time, we can check out Too Short a Season. So, I'll get that episode going. But I'll put a plug to Modi's stuff. You can click on that in the YouTube. And since these episodes are actually going up on iTunes now, applause in the background.
Woo! So happy for that.
I have never dedicated anything as much effort as I have to putting these things on iTunes. It is
so happy.
It is the epitome of, it's not super complicated, but there are a lot of steps that you have to go through to get these things done.
That's true.
But so you guys can, thank you for listening on iTunes. Thank you for watching on YouTube. I appreciate it. And we will be back next time. And thank you, Modi, for coming on to the show again.
Well, thank you very much for having me back again.
And we will check in next time with, what the hell I just said, Too Short a Season. All right, guys. Thank you very much. See ya.